You want to talk to us about keeping fresh. How long have you been preaching for?
Since 1967.
Right. So quite some time.
It seems a long time.
Yeah.
Some of the parishioners felt it was a long time too. It's nearly 50 years, that's right. Yeah.
So it's fair to classify you as a seasoned preacher.
Seasoned preacher is a good word.
That's a nice word, isn't it?
It's
a
good
positive
word.
word.
That's right.
Now you would have surely experienced the challenge of it sometimes feeling quite dry or what have you.
Yeah.
So we're really after now some reflections on how do you keep going and sustaining a preaching ministry over a long period of time.
Yeah, it's a great question because I think one of the saddest sights is people who are doing ministry out of a sense of duty. They've lost joy in it and confidence in it. They're doing all the right things, but the passion is not there. That's sad to see. It's dissatisfying for them and dissatisfying for other people, I suspect. So it's a great question. The freshness thing, I can answer that in terms of, having a bad day, and the answer is you just trust God, get on with it and pray hard, and God will use it anyway, even if you're not feeling particularly fresh. So that some of my worst sermons, afterwards people have said how helpful they found them, which is terrific. The way I think about the question is a longer term issue, really. The first point I make is that fresh sermons only come from fresh preachers, by which I mean if my life with God isn't right, if I'm not loving God, growing in the knowledge of God, repenting of sins every day, excited about God, then my sermons will reflect that very quickly. You can easily see whether a person's still in love with God, really. So as a preacher, I must make sure that I'm still not just loving God, but growing in my love of God every day. So, because I'm not married, I often say to married couples, I hope your love for each other is growing every day, see, because they can't say, how about your marriage? But the same is true of loving God. I think that should be growing every day. So, lots of reflection on God, lots of Bible reading, lots of prayer, being right with God, so I've confessed my sins and I'm ready to offer myself to serve God. That's the first point. The second point is, and it's a great danger for me, that I've preached on most parts of the Bible before. And the danger is that I think, I know what that text means. So what I do is look at a text and try and imagine I'm reading it for the first time. And a game I play is not look at the next verse, but imagine what I would have written next or something like that. And that makes me focus on what is actually the Spirit has provided for us in the text. And I recently redid Colossians, having preached it many, many times, and I discovered more and more gems I hadn't noticed before. It was so exciting. It was for the Belgrave Heights Convention, actually, and it was just wonderful to find new things in God's Word. Not just in the text of Colossians, but also connected with other parts of the Bible and so on. So I think the best thing is not to keep old sermons, but to start all over again and really try and get as deeply as I can into the text. So that continually refreshes me as a believer, as well as me as a minister, as well as then my preaching. As Jesus said, out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. So what's going on inside me will affect what I say. And then I try and keep my experience of the text fresh. I also try and keep my experience of the congregation fresh. So the danger is I'll get into ruts in preaching to this congregation. I'll get onto my favourite hobby horses. So I try and rethink who people are. I do that by talking to them, finding out individuals, how they're getting on with God, what big issues they're facing. So recently I discovered, by talking to a few people in the congregation, that a number of them felt because their children weren't, or one of their children wasn't still a Christian, they'd failed. So they were bringing a deep sense of failure to church. So it's so important that I as a preacher know about that. And then I try to read widely about changes in our society because people are affected by the society they live in. So I'm trying to be imaginatively fresh in my reading of the text and imaginatively fresh in my reading of people. And my policy has been to rethink my preaching style every 5 years, because I know society's moved on, and I have to change and adapt to where people are, not where they were when I began preaching in 1967. The other point I'd make is that a ministry like preaching, like pastoral ministry, takes creative energy. And when I get tired, I can go through the sort of actions of ministry, but I'm not creative. So for me, being a preacher means I have to be sure that I'm not overstretched in every other part of my life, because then I'm too tired to think creatively about the text, creatively about the people, or creatively about the sermon. So I need love for God, I need love for the text, I need love for people, and I need wisdom for my own life. So I don't say yes to so many things that I've got no energy to put into the preparation, no time or energy to put into the preparation, and no energy to preach.